We will, in the next month, embark on our 12th straight year of war since 2001. And it was a great privilege for both Deborah and I to be able to represent our men and women and their families at the highest levels in the United States military. Extraordinary young men and women, 2.2 million or so active Guard and Reserve, and there are pieces of that you may understand and you may not understand. The active force is the one, and this is, I should point out, an all-volunteer force. The active force is a force that obviously joins and serves for a period of time set in the contract. The reserves are not the reserves of 2000 or before. The reserves all know what they're in for. Just about every one of them has deployed overseas, and the vast majority of them have deployed into combat. The Guard is also a completely changed outfit, both on the air side and the ground side, since the war started. And I'm very fond of saying we could not be who we are as a military and as a country and have been had the impact we've had in these huge challenges that have involved obviously lots of combat without the Guard and Reserve. And so reaching and touching them in the totality of what we're talking about is very critical. Part of that in the Guard and Reserve has been the enormously supportive efforts on the part of our employers throughout the country who see young men and women who work at their organizations and then leave for a year and then come back, have a job, and sustain that. And that's been an incredibly important patriotic part of so many organizations like many of yours who've done that. And I just want to express my gratitude for that as well. That means a lot. So 2.2 million men and women, and then about that many who've actually, over the course of the last 11 years, who've gone into combat. And I try to remind everybody we still have, despite what you might read in the papers, the implication being we're almost out of Afghanistan. We've got 70,000 who are deployed in Afghanistan today. Some of them may not see the sun come up tomorrow. Families at home who obviously worry about that phone call or that knock on the, not the phone call, the knock on the door. And that still goes on. And again, an enormously talented group, and in the 43 years that I had the privilege of wearing the uniform, clearly the best group I've ever been around. The average age of any unit in the military, it's been this way almost since we became a country, is about 21 years old. I say that to parents, and parents who sometimes marvel about their 21 years old who are still at home, that somehow when they translate themselves into this environment, they mature at a level, they lead at a level, they show discipline. Some of their parents say they've never seen at home. They show an ability to work under pressure, to work as a team, as a part of a team in extraordinary circumstances. And sadly, over 7,000 will never come home, with probably 60 to 70,000 who physically been wounded, and hundreds of thousands, quite frankly, who suffer from post-traumatic stress, as is the case in every war. And we've improved dramatically in how we both treat the physical wounds as well as the mental wounds, but there still are challenges with respect to that. I don't want those, I would not want those challenges to scare anybody off. The main message with respect to these young men and women is they are extraordinary. I actually believe, and these are all, by and large, they're all 20-somethings, and they're going to change the world. And they are different from my generation, and I understand that. I've talked to them not just 20-somethings in the military, but 20-somethings throughout our country, and they are going to change the world. And I believe they will make a difference for decades to come. They will probably change careers. They're going to live longer. So we're embarking on a 50 or a 60-year opportunity with these young people to make a difference. I also believe that they have sacrificed. They've done what Uncle Sam has asked them to do. They haven't fought it. Now, I'm a Vietnam. I was here for Vietnam. My first deployment was off the coast of Vietnam. I remember those times. We are in vastly different times with respect to the military, with respect to how the American people actually feel about our military, and are incredibly supportive no matter what the politics are, through two very, very difficult wars. But I also worry, and if you do the numbers, it's less than 1% of the population. It is not a war that everybody's invested in, either financially or literally with not just treasure, but also someone in your family who's in it. We come from fewer and fewer places in the country as we've gotten smaller. We're 40% smaller than we were at the end of the Cold War. And fewer people in America know us, know what we've been through. And that makes understanding us and understanding what we've been through that much more difficult. And as is typical in the military, about 80% of them will transition out of the military. 70 to 80% don't make it a career. Our challenge in the military is to make sure we keep the best of who we are. But the fact is that many will leave, and they will transition back to a very robust and good GI Bill. So many of them will go to take advantage of that, go to college. There is a tremendous resource available in the country in terms of community colleges, but oftentimes these are 17 or 18 or 19-year-olds that didn't do that well in high school, hadn't grown up yet. They're very intimidated by the transition to whatever it might be, including something like a community college. And the dropout rate in community college is pretty significant. They will have been, in many cases, in what I would call the main units of the Army and the Marine Corps in particular, the ground forces. They will have seen 3, 4, 5 combat tours, long combat tours in terms of time away from home. And so they will have been gone for a year, back for a year, gone for a year, back for a year, sometimes over the course of 5 or 6 deployments. So we've asked them to do a tremendous amount, and they've done it. And if you're a special operations type, you may have done that for shorter periods of time. Deployments are shorter. They could be 90 days or 120 days, but they could have done it between 20 and 30 times when you talk to them. So they have handled the stress exceptionally well. They've been through a lot. We've actually changed how we do this tremendously. They've adapted to technology. They've adapted to the enemy. They've led in incredibly different and difficult circumstances. And many of them have seen the edge of hell and have come back. And that's always true when we have fought as a country. That said, they, I believe, are a huge resource for the future. So there's just tremendous opportunity for them. So education is one. They still have the American dream in mind. And I try to talk to those about those who've been injured, not as disabled. I don't want to talk about their disability. I think we do that, and we've got a mindset associated with disability that is absolutely appalling in the country for lots of reasons. I want to talk about them in terms of their ability, not their disability. I've seen wounded go into companies, then the companies thought they were doing an individual reaching out and making a difference in their lives, and they were. But the stories that come back after about 6 months or a year is how that individual inspired the company, because they are fit, they want to make a difference, they are independent, they feel very strongly about being able to make a difference in the future. They want to get married. If they're married, they want to have kids. They want typically 2 incomes in a family, and Deborah will talk about the family side of this and the incredible spouses that have supported these fights specifically. They want an education. They want an education for their kids, and they'd like to own a place. I mean, that's not new. And obviously to have that, they also need to be able to go to work and put food on the table. So, and I know in great part that's why you're here. I'll leave you with these 2 thoughts. What I have seen work best with vets is to have vets on the inside of a company that understand the language, that understand the background, and that can translate the skills, and the skills translate, and doing it in a way that connects with almost a support kind of network for veterans as they come home. and also for a period of time, and it could be 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 12 weeks, have a transition program so that a new hiree, has an opportunity to sit down, figure out what this new company or organization is and where they're going to fit in and go from there. Those two keys have really worked in organizations like actually JP Morgan Chase, and there are many others who've made a difference. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting our men and women, as I know you do, or you wouldn't be here in the room, and their families.
Well, thank you all for being here and for giving us a chance to talk to you about our military members and our families and what terrific individuals they are. It's hard to try to describe this last 10 years, 12 years now of war that our families have been basically living through on a day-to-day basis. None of us, including me and my family, because my husband wasn't deployed multiple times to a war zone. He was over there, but not a year at a time, year after year. Our families have been, the military it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a great life. But in the last 10 years, the stresses that our families have experienced, we've never seen anything like it in our country. And hopefully we never will again. But kind of one way to talk about our families is to talk about what it's like, and we've done this before. We've used this example. If I were a 5-year-old child, and my father usually, could be a mother, but usually a father, deployed to Afghanistan in 2001 and is in a unit that has deployed multiple times, and Michael talked about this, 3, 4, 5 times. I'm now, at this time in my life, I'm now 15, 16 years old. My entire conscious life has been at war. I am basically a child of war because my parent has been gone and in harm's way most of my life. So I have a different experience than most children in the United States of America. I live under constant fear for the safety of my loved one. I am trying to struggle in growing and becoming, growing every year, and trying to learn all the things I need to learn as a child would normally learn, but I'm doing it under this incredible stress. And I don't think we understand exactly the impact of that stress on these children. We see the results of this in sometimes overachieving, underachieving in school. We see problems with children on medication. I think in 2010, 2011, the prescriptions written for children dependents of military under 18 was at a phenomenal all-time high. We've never seen that before. Children in counseling, in therapy, which we need to do, but we need to understand exactly what we've been asking of our families and of our children. What we don't know is the long-term effects that these combat deployments will have on our children. There are very, very few studies on military children, no longitudinal studies. So long-term, we don't know what's going to happen to a child who for the last 10, 11 years has experienced this. Then you add to that, particularly children that are living near an installation, they see their friends' parents wounded, killed, perhaps committing suicide. They may have that experience. They live with that kind of fear all the time. It's something that we just don't understand what it's like for a child. You talk about National Guard or Reserve children. They live in an area where they're not around other military children. They may be the only military child at a school. There's nobody there that understands what they're going through. Nobody there they can talk to. So there's an isolation for those kids. So we have, I think, an awful lot to be concerned about for our children, for their futures. They have basically served and sacrificed as much as their parents. And these are things that we need to be aware of and look to the future on how to make sure that we take care of these kids, make sure they have the education, make sure that they have counseling when they need it, whatever it is that we can do to make their futures secure. For our spouses, we have spouses who have literally become the sole parent in the household for months and months and months at a time. They may be working or trying to find a job, raising children, running the household. They may have parents that are sick. they may be dealing with someone that has been wounded or someone that's suffering post-traumatic stress. We know that when even coming home from a one-year deployment, the families go through enormous transition issues. And you multiply that over a number of deployments, it gets more difficult, more complicated for these families really to integrate back into what their lives were. And of course, no one is ever the same. So you have this ongoing problem of the leaving, which is a very difficult time with a lot of stress. But then you also have the return, which is also stressful. And people always think, this is really great, he's home or she's home. And it is great. But there's also the problem of coming back into the house where everybody has changed in one way or another. If you couple that with this, when they get out, when they leave the service, there's also the transition into the community back home. And that brings another set of circumstances, either employment issues or the economic problems. I think the thing we worry about, I think, the most with spouses in the employment side of this is our spouses, most of them want to work, they often need to work. And they have difficulty, and they will tell you, if you just let me in the door, you just give me the interview. But that often doesn't happen. There's still that thought process that military spouses are going to move. Well, I'm not sure in this day and age how you know if you hire someone that's not in the military that they're going to stay. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I doubt it. So I would say to you, these are incredible individuals. They have withstood stresses that most of us couldn't, wouldn't want to, but have borne this because it's part of what their life is like. It's part of what they believe in. They're extraordinarily patriotic. They support their loved one and the country. And so these are people that I think any company would benefit by their presence. And we know this because we hear the stories back. It's the same thing about a veteran. A military spouse brings in different life experiences, brings things to the company that maybe someone else from another set of life experience doesn't have. So I would hope that when you see a resume from a military spouse, that you would think more in terms of just giving the opportunity for that spouse to have a chance to be interviewed. But I would also tell you that they're incredible, they're resilient. We're extraordinarily proud of them. They're proud of the country, what they're doing in their service. And I hope that you think about their service and sacrifice. Thanks.